I know I probably shouldn't have done this, but I told myself, hey, what's the worst that could happen? I might as well go ahead and do it. And I'm ashamed that I did it, but it's done now and there's nothing left to do but talk about it. So, yeah, I finally watched the live action Gem and the Holograms. We all remember Gem from the 80s, right? Gem was excitement. Gem was adventure. She was glamour and glitter, fashion and fame. She was truly outrageous. This was what it was like back in Reagan's America, people. You know what I'm talking about? You know, the adults may have been high on that Colombian booger sugar, but us bastard children of the 80s were hopped up on Pepsi and MTV. So naturally, Hollywood said to itself, hey, here's an 80s property that we haven't cannibalized yet, and such is the case with John M. Chu's adaptation of Gem and the Holograms. And I have to tell you that this is one of the shining examples of a film going above and beyond to do the bare minimum. From the release of the first trailer for Gem and the Holograms, it became painfully obvious to everyone involved that the filmmakers had all but stripped everything that made Gem and the Holograms such a great animated series back in the 80s, as we're introduced to Jerrica Benton, now reimagined as an introverted teenage girl who suffers from a case of Kajagoogoo syndrome. No. Okay, fine, whatever. But she has her sister and her foster cousins, I guess, who are always doing their own thing and being out there and being loud and brash and expressive. And Jerrica just doesn't seem to want to get in on the action. But one night, she decides to film herself in a darkly lit corner of her room with a pink wig and heavy makeup and perform an acoustic ballad under the name Gem, which her sister Kimber decides to upload to the internet without her knowledge or permission, because that's perfectly fine, right? And lo and behold, becomes an overnight viral sensation. This, of course, draws the attention of Starlight Enterprises CEO Erica Raymond, who decides that she's going to take Gem and turn her into the next big pop sensation. As you can imagine, fans were not pleased by this, as it bore little resemblance to the cartoon that they had been fans of back in the day, and by the time the second trailer for the film came out, any interest in the film had taken a harder nosedive than Al Pacino near the end of Scarface. Because by the time Gem and the Holograms was released in theaters, the film only managed to get onto the box office at number 15, making $1.4 million on a $5 million budget. Needless to say, that is bad. And it just kind of gets worse when you consider that it was released overseas and only managed to get less than $1 million in international gross, bringing its total before Universal yanked it from theaters to $2.3 million worldwide. And that is not only one of the worst openings ever for a film released in more than 2,000 theaters, it also stands as the worst performance of any film released by a major studio. So, if nothing else, you can't say that Gem and the Holograms isn't in the history books, right? Because that is absolutely historic, don't you think? Naturally, I avoided this film like someone coughing on the street with no mask on during social distancing, and resigned myself to never laying eyes upon it. Until I saw that it had recently been added to Netflix.
Should this be calling me, man? Be calling me, man.
And as I queued up the film last weekend, I looked at the 1 hour and 58 minute runtime for the film, took a swig of my ginger-flavored sparkling water, and I hit play. What is there to say about the live-action Jem and the Holograms movie? I guess the best way to describe it would be to say that it's basically if Hannah Montana and Earth to Echo gave birth to the Chrissy Teigen awkward smiling meme. For all of John M. Chu's talk about being a die-hard fan of the original cartoon and wanting to pay it the respect it deserves in live action, I submit that this man was lying with his whole entire ass, because any influence the film draws from the source material is buried under layers of the most paint-by-numbers, predictable teen drama tropes I have ever seen, so to the point that I feel like the Freeform channel would even be embarrassed to employ some of them. None of this feels particularly well thought out or executed, as the events in the film happen in a stupidly compressed timeline where Jerrica goes from being a viral internet sensation to being one of the most talked about pop singers in the country in the span of less than a week. Seriously, by the time Jem and the Holograms do their first live performance, they have amassed a fan following so large and devoted that it includes celebrities like Dwayne Johnson, Ariana Grande, and Chris Pratt. Of course, we also have to acknowledge that recently there was a 8-year-old girl who went viral for her song I Wonder What's Inside Your Butthole, which was subsequently covered by established musicians. But that was record of the year quality material compared to the sappy, sad panda drivel that took the nation by storm in just a day. Now, recontextualizing Jem and the Holograms through the lens of social media and internet fame isn't an inherently bad idea, but the execution of it in this film presumes that you, the audience, are stupid. There's no trust in us as audience members to be able to pick up on this theme in the film without a proliferation of random YouTube videos from a bunch of people from across the country doing their various talents, whether they be music-based or prop-based, and having it all monologued by Jerrica at the beginning of the film to talk about the whole idea of people creating different personas of themselves through their online status and trying to sort of navigate that landscape and maintain your sanity. And I think that's something that would have been interesting if we were able to see it organically in the film without it being just an exposition dump at the very beginning. And even when she's not monologuing over that, because she does do a lot of monologuing throughout the film, you still have these interspersed moments where they're just kind of filling in gaps of YouTube videos that are supposed to be in conjunction with a tense moment in the film, and all it does is kind of take you out of it and feel like something that is just really gimmicky and stupid, and I hated every instance of it in Jem and the Holograms. Again, I'm not opposed to this idea, but it's just frustrating to see how ham-fisted the makers of this film decided to try and present this to the audience without exploring it in any explicit detail. It just feels kind of vague and it doesn't really work. And you also have to remember that this is a 2-hour film, and I can't remember the last time a film with that runtime did so little to expand on the characters and the storyline as it's presented in Jem and the Holograms. Aj and Shayna, we really don't get much about them beyond the fact that they're the foster children of Jerrica and Kimber's aunt, who have all been living together since they were in kindergarten. And just to see what little the film does in fleshing out their characters is a little sad, quite honestly. But what about the music? That's always been an important factor in the original Jem and the Holograms cartoon, right? So how is that? Well, I'm glad you asked, because it is terrible. It is absolutely the most generic country to pop transition era Taylor Swift style music you could possibly imagine, which I guess makes sense considering that one of the executive producers on this film happens to be Scooter Braun. Again, this movie thinks that you, the audience, are stupid. It also thought that it could get away with having a part of the hook in the song Youngblood, and we wouldn't notice that it's very reminiscent of part of the hook of one of the game's most popular hits. Even worse is any scene in the film featuring Jem and the Holograms performing a song live, because I swear to God, there has never been so little effort put into making actors look like they're playing the music that you're hearing. It is, wait for it, truly outrageous. There is such a crazy disconnect from what you're hearing versus what they're playing, and there are so many instances where you can clearly see that their movements as they play their instruments are completely out of sync with whatever music is being played that we're listening to. And I would even suggest that there is not an instance where whatever instrument they're supposed to be playing was used in the actual creation of the song that we're hearing as the film is playing out. It's completely embarrassing. I don't understand how you thought this was okay. I don't know what attention to detail you thought you had with this film, but it was completely lacking. There's truly no missed opportunity bigger in Jem and the Holograms than the fact that the filmmakers did not hire Sia to do every aspect of the music in this film. When you think about it, the woman has already been Jem for the better part of a decade. Last fall, she was buying people's groceries for Thanksgiving, and no one recognized her because she looked like a regular-ass human. Come on now. But if there is any transgression that is unforgivable and maybe even worthy of, criminal judgment, I would have to say that it is what they've done to our poor Synergy, or as it's officially designated in the film, 51N3RG.Y. And I ask myself why. Why couldn't it just be called the word Synergy instead of this alphanumeric serial number? Because, again, this movie, the makers of it, think that you, the audience, are stupid. And it's not enough to just have the father officially calling it Synergy, even though he actually words this at a certain point in the film. But you have this thing that you feel like you need to make it make sense. You need to make it seem like a machine, even though it had a sentient avatar that was an actual woman based off of Jem's mother in the actual cartoon. Why not just stick with that? I mean, it is still gendered by Jerrica's father in the film, but this is why you have such a missed opportunity to flesh out the plot and characters of Jem and the Holograms, because Synergy takes up a very large subplot in the film in which Jerrica finds Synergy and it just activates apropos of nothing and leads her on a scavenger hunt across the LA area to all of these little points where it can find pieces of itself. And it basically becomes the equivalent to Ralphie's decoder pin from A Christmas Story. Because when all of the pieces are put back together in Synergy, including Jerrica's star earrings as the final piece, it is revealed that the whole purpose of Synergy is to play a message to Jerrica from her father that tells her to do everything she already learned to do over the course of the film up to that point. It's absolutely meaningless, this message from her father. And it seems kind of bad because it's almost like they don't want to acknowledge Kimber at all, even though he does kind of acknowledge her a little bit at the end of the message. But for the most part, this is just a message exclusively for Jerrica to tell her things that she's already had to figure out for herself over the course of this film. And this takes up probably roughly around 15 to 20 minutes of the entirety of the film when you really get down to it. And that's an unimaginable waste of time when you put it into perspective. Especially when you consider that in the original cartoon, synergy was the core element of Jerrica and her sisters becoming Jem and the Holograms. She's the reason. She's the catalyst for everything that happens in that cartoon. So the fact that the filmmakers decided to completely disassociate that very vital element from everything else that's going on just seems really stupid when you get right down to it. It's amazing to think that they just thought to themselves, okay, let's trot out this, aborted prototype of BB-8 to give Jerrica a message that she can only access once she's gone to a pier or a nightclub or had to break into Starlight Enterprises to get back her earrings that Erica Raymond took from her at the beginning of the film to begin with, and just not try and just integrate that more into the creation of Jem conceptually. It seems really stupid. And I get that they were trying to do something more grounded, more real world. But then you also think about the fact that Japan has had whole-ass holographic idols and pop singers for years. It just seems really dumb that the filmmakers decided that one of the most central core elements of the cartoon was something that needed to, one, be taken away and separated from the whole creation of Jem, and then furthermore brought down to this level where they basically made Synergy a toy that you could buy at Spencer Gifts. Bottom line, I can't imagine how this managed to fail so spectacularly on every conceivable level. I blame John M. Chu, even though I've loved his subsequent films. I blame Jason Blum. Yes, that Jason Blum. And I feel like this film was not for anyone. It wasn't for fans of the original cartoon, and I struggled to find anything of value that the younger audience that they were targeting would have found in this film, especially when you get to the point of whatever message they're trying to put out regarding Jem as a character and what her music and image means to all of the fans that she has managed to bring together over the course of this film. Its use of social media as a framing device is as hollow as it is exploitative, employing some of the most insultingly nebulous and manipulative virtue signaling that I've ever witnessed in my life, quite honestly. And it's only kind of made worse when you introduce a subplot in which Jem's love interest, even though he's a whole-ass adult, Rio, is ultimately revealed at the end of the film to be the rightful successor to Starlight Records and becomes the new head of the record label. And that's kind of messed up when you consider that the cartoon in the 80s positioned Jerrica as the CEO of Starlight from Jump. And I just think to myself, damn, that's kind of sexist. What kind of bovine fecal matter is that? And if you are wondering about Jem and the Holograms' rivals from the cartoons, the Misfits, they do actually appear in the film in an after-credits scene that was meant to set up a sequel that is obviously never going to happen. As Erica Raymond meets the band members under an overpass, and despite the fact that they acknowledge that they know each other, she has to awkwardly name drop each member because for the last time, the filmmakers think that you, the audience, are stupid. And Erica Raymond has this proposal to manage the Misfits so that they can take down Jem and the Holograms after she loses control of Starlight Enterprises, and this definitely piques the interest of the Misfits' lead singer, Pizzazz, as played by Kesha, who responds by saying that our songs are better. We're gonna get her. This is one of 3 instances throughout the film where they try to shoehorn lyrics from the original Jem theme song as actual dialogue, and none of it works. All I have to say is Molly Ringwald and Juliette Lewis definitely deserved better than this film. Especially Molly Ringwald, when you consider that before this, she hadn't been in a theatrically released film in 14 years. How are you gonna do our girl dirty like that? Hey guys, thanks for watching as always. If you've got your own thoughts or opinions, if you've seen Jem and the Holograms, you can go ahead and leave a comment in the section below. Don't forget to hit the like button, hit the notification bell, share this video with your friends and family, and if you'd like to keep up to date on more At Random videos, you can do so by clicking the subscribe button right over here.